An orca named J35 swam through the waters off the Pacific Northwest, carrying her dead newborn calf on her head. The calf had lived for 30 minutes. The mother, a member of the southern resident orca population, eventually nicknamed Tahlequah by the humans watching her, would not let it sink. When the body started to drift below the surface, she dove and pushed it back up. When other members of the pod swam close, they took turns helping her balance it. The calf was soft and small. After 17 days and roughly 1,000 miles of swimming, she finally let the body go. Marine biologists called it a tour of grief. Other scientists called it a tour of confusion, a mother responding to a body that wasn't behaving the way bodies are supposed to behave. The argument is still going. This is the central problem with asking whether animals know about death. We can see what they do. We cannot see what they think. And the line between this is grief and this is an animal doing something we don't understand is one of the hardest lines in modern biology. But the evidence keeps piling up on one side of it. In 1968, the British primatologist Jane Goodall described a young chimpanzee named Flint, who refused to leave the body of his mother Flo when she died. He sat by her corpse for 3 days. He stopped eating, he grew sick. Within a month, he was dead. Goodall later wrote that he had grieved himself to death. The behavior Goodall documented has now been observed thousands of times across great ape populations. Chimpanzee mothers carry their dead infants for weeks, sometimes for months, eventually mummified by the dry African air. Bonobos gather around the dying and stop eating. In 2009, a chimpanzee named Pansy died at a safari park in Scotland, surrounded by her family. They had spent the previous day touching her gently and grooming her. After she stopped breathing, an older female stayed beside her body all night. The next morning, when keepers removed Pansy's body, the chimpanzees refused to enter that part of the enclosure for days. The behavior reads, to anyone with eyes, exactly like grief. The catch is that grief is not the same thing as knowing. A chimpanzee mother might carry her dead infant for weeks because she has not yet processed the absence, not because she understands that the infant has crossed into a state called death. A dog that won't leave its owner's grave might be confused, not bereaved. A dolphin pushing a dead podmate to the surface might be trying to help it breathe. These are reasonable interpretations. They are the interpretations a scientist has to consider. But then there are the elephants. An adult elephant lives for 60 to 70 years and remembers almost every elephant it has ever met. When an elephant dies, alone or in a group, other elephants come, sometimes from very far away. They stand silently around the body. They touch it with their trunks. They cover it with branches and dirt. They return weeks, months, sometimes years later. They visit the bones, pick them up gently, and pass them between one another. In one documented case in Kenya, a group of elephants stopped at the spot where a family member had died 8 years earlier. They had not been near the place in the intervening years. They stood at the exact location for half an hour, in silence, before moving on. This behavior is so consistent that it is now one of the diagnostic features of elephant social life. They know they're dead. They keep knowing them. Whatever the elephant version of understanding death looks like, it is not a simple mistake. Crows and ravens do something stranger. When a crow dies, other crows gather. They call loudly, they circle the body, they do not approach it directly, then they leave, and they avoid that area, sometimes for years. In 2015, a researcher named Kaylee Swift at the University of Washington designed an experiment. She put taxidermied dead crows in public parks and watched what living crows did. They gathered, they called, they were alarmed. But they also paid attention to the humans nearby. Then, weeks later, even months later, that when those same humans walked through those same parks, the crows recognized them and mobbed them. The crows were not necessarily mourning, they were learning. The death of another crow was, to them, important information about the world. Who is dangerous? Where is dangerous? Whatever a crow funeral is, it is not a ceremony, it is a class. So we have grief in great apes, reverence in elephants, threat assessment in crows, carrying behavior in cetaceans, burial behavior in some insects. Burying beetles will literally bury the corpse of a small mammal underground and then lay their eggs in it, but that is closer to gardening than to grief. The behaviors range from clearly mournful to coldly practical, with most of the cases sitting somewhere ambiguous in the middle. But there is a second, much harder question hiding under the first one. Asking whether animals understand that another animal has died is one thing. Asking whether an animal understands that it will die is something else entirely. This is called mortality salience, and it is the kind of knowledge that defines a lot of what makes humans strange. We are an animal that knows it has an expiration date, and we have spent 200,000 years building religions, monuments, philosophies, and existential dread around that knowledge. The question is whether any other species carries that same weight. The honest answer is that we do not know, but there are hints. Old elephants sometimes leave the herd when they begin to fail. They walk away alone, toward a watering hole, a familiar place, a remembered shade of trees, and they lie down there. Some have been observed touching their own bodies in what looks like resignation. Dying dogs hide. Dying cats famously go off by themselves. Many scientists believe this is pure instinct. Animals that are weak attract predators, so withdrawing is an evolutionary advantage. And they are probably partly right. But the behavior is also strangely deliberate. Many old elephants seem to know exactly where they are going. There's a population of orcas off the coast of British Columbia, in which the older females, well past reproductive age, lead the hunting groups. They are the encyclopedia of the pod. They remember where the salmon runs are in years of scarcity. They have lived through more lean seasons than the younger whales have been alive. When one of them dies, the entire pod sometimes stops traveling, for days at a time, even when food is running out. It looks like mourning. It also looks like a system that has lost the operator's manual. 2,500 years ago, the philosopher Aristotle wrote that man is the only animal who knows he must die. He was certain of this. We have spent most of the time since then being equally certain. We may be wrong. The evidence is small, scattered, easy to dismiss case by case, and harder to dismiss in aggregate. Tahlequah carried her calf for 17 days. Pansy's family wouldn't enter her room. The elephants stand at the bones. The crows show up at the funeral. The old chimp lay down beside his mother and wouldn't get up. None of these are conclusive on their own. All of them together are something. For most of recorded history, we assume that animals were unfeeling automata, that their behavior resembled grief only because we were soft enough to imagine grief into it. The science of the last 50 years has slowly, reluctantly, walked that assumption back. We now know that some animals plan for the future. Some animals deceive each other. Some animals teach their young what their grandmothers taught them. Some possibly understand what is happening when the body of someone they have known for 40 years stops moving. Aristotle may have been wrong, or he may have been right, and the elephants just look like they know. For now, the only honest position is that the question is open, the evidence is more interesting than we expected, and we should probably stop being so confident.